It was bent before being buried to take away its magical properties. A Viking metal rod, which left experts baffled for more than a century, has finally been identified as a magic wand used by a witch to cast spells. The 90-centimeter long rod has been a part of the British Museum's collection since 1894, when it was discovered in Norway's Romsdal province. Before you dismiss this as just crazy talk, let's consider Moses' rod, or the rod that Aaron used when they went to the Pharaoh and cast it down, and it turned into snakes and swallowed up the sorcerers' rods that they threw down, and theirs turned into snakes. Also, when they went to the Red Sea and Moses used the rod to part the sea, or when he hit the rock in the wilderness and water came spewing out. Edward Leighton wrote a book called The Coming Race, and it was about a race of beings that were angel-like who escaped underground to avoid a cataclysmic flood in the time of Noah. Stay with me on this because it gets good and connects to Hitler. The novel centers on a young, independently wealthy traveler, the narrator, who accidentally finds his way into a subterranean world occupied by beings who seem to resemble angels and call themselves viril. The hero soon discovers that the viril are descendants of an antediluvian civilization who live in networks of subterranean caverns linked by tunnels. It is a technologically supported utopia, chief among their tools being the all-permeating fluid called viril, a latent source of energy which is spiritually elevated hosts are able to master through training of their will, to a degree which depends upon their hereditary constitution, giving them access to an extraordinary force that can be controlled at will. The power of the will include the ability to heal, change, and destroy beings and things. The destructive powers in particular are awesomely powerful, allowing a young viril children to wipe out entire cities if necessary. It is also suggested that the viril are fully telepathic. The narrator states that in time the viril will run out of habitable space underground and start climbing to the surface of the earth, destroying mankind in the process if necessary. In the book, this is where it's interesting to me, is that the viril can be used as a mighty weapon, and it can be used over all types of matter, both animate and inanimate. And that's where we get into Hitler, what he and his people and the Theosophy and the viril society and some of the people associated with Hitler's Reich, they were seeking this power of viril to animate such objects as the viril flying saucer. Now here is also something very interesting, and I can connect this to the Shaver mysteries, which I know some of that stuff is true, and we'll get to that later. A viril staff is an object in the shape of a wand or staff, which is used as a channel for viril. The narrator describes it as a hollow with stops, keys, or springs in which viril can be altered, modified, or directed to either destroy or heal. The staff is about the size of a walking stick, but can be lengthened or shortened according to the user's preference. The appearance and function of the viril staff differs according to gender, age, etc. Some staffs are more potent for destruction, others for healing. The staves of children are said to be much simpler than those of sages, and those of wives and mothers, and destructive parts is removed while the healing aspects are emphasized. So from the time of Moses using the rod of God, to people like Blavatsky, who started the New Age movement, most people say, to Hitler seeking after a power that was called viril to animate spacecraft or even the bell. Many people have believed this, so when it comes to a object like is in the British Museum that was bent to render it powerless, old times people used to believe this kind of thing. There is something to it. Now I'm going to wrap this up by showing you a few modern day cases that the Shaver Mysteries had beings called Darrow and Tarot that used objects that were directed energy type weapons. And in this story that we just looked at, these beings used these rods to kind of more like a technological device, and it was not magic, but there was something to it. But these cases I'm going to show you next are true stories that people have seen Darrow type beings from the Shaver Mysteries that have come into their rooms and used a wand or a staff of some kind against them to manipulate them. And then I'll let you decide. This is case 1 where the Darrow uses a wand-like instrument to the side of someone's head. I woke up one morning and smoked a cigarette. As soon as I was done smoking the cigarette, I put it out in the nightstand next to me, and then my arm was twisted behind my back. I was scared to look over at first, but I finally looked over to see what it was because it felt familiar, similar to an experience that happened when I was a child at 5 years old. And when I looked up, I seen a being with a long floppy nose and blue around the nose. The being was laughing at me with a honking, weird sounding laugh like haw, 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 haw. And when he done that, I noticed that he had a device in his hand. He took this device, he stuck it to the side of my head, and when he done that, I seen a door open up in the corner of my room. It appeared to be about 75 feet away, guessing. This is case 2. A man named Matthew sent me this story. And I was 18 years old. I was scared of the dark at that time, so I always had a flashlight under my pillow. My dog was with me on the foot of the bed, and all of a sudden I heard a honking laugh. Honk, 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 honk. And I wondered what it was, so I got the flashlight from under the pillow and I shined it up at this being. He was standing at the foot of the bed, and he had a long nose and blue around the nose. The being told me, "If you move, I will hurt your family, so hold still." The being then came around to the side of the bed, and the dog had just took off because it was scared. Well, he came to the side of the bed and he stuck this instrument to the side of my head near my eye, on the temple area. When he did that, I felt a very sharp pain and it hurt for a minute. And then the being proceeded to laugh in that honking sound again. Honk, 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 honk. The being then told me, "I am from a forest called Whitaker." And then at that point, the being laughed some more, honk, honk, a honking laugh that was spooky. The being was not worried about me or what I was going to do. And at that point, there was a loud scream, and it was so loud that it hurt my ears. And then the being disappeared, and I looked over to find my dog, and it was hiding in the corner of the room. Moses' rod, God is the power behind that. The sorceress rod, satanic powers are behind that. And when it comes to the Darrow, They are demonized, like Shaver said, but I think that they use technology. So that's the breakdown. And this thing that is in the British Museum, this wand or staff, this thing was used by a sorceress, and the power that was behind it was fallen angels, demons, or whatever you want to call it. So bending it, I don't think does any good, because it was already powerless whenever the person whose will was to use it was put in the grave. The item already was rendered useless. So leave your comments, subscribe, share, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.